before Josh Seiter would sign up as a contestant on season 11 of The Bachelorette and later announce that he was transgender. Before Josh Seiter would parlay this announcement into social media fame with nearly 1 million followers on Instagram. Before Josh Seiter would set the record straight, no pun intended, and tell the world that his trans coming out party was a social experiment to expose those who lean left politically. When I saw this story first gaining media attention, I gave Josh a follow on Instagram about 6 months ago. It became a joke between me and a guy friend, and we started impersonating Josh as like an inside joke. He started every video hilariously saying, "Hey everyone."
Hey everyone.
So every other day, me and my friend would send each other voice notes saying, "Hey everyone." We were so convinced that his videos were serious, which also shows what a great actor Josh is. From there, I ended up talking with Josh himself, or should I say herself, and he said he would be game to do an interview, so here we go. My first question for you. You lived both as a man and briefly portrayed yourself as a woman during your recent social experiment. In your experience, what would you say is the hardest part about being a woman in today's society?
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to prove, is that by throwing on a dress and lipstick, I don't know what it's like to be a woman, and no trans woman knows what it's like to be a real woman just because we dress up in cosplay. So I really have no shared experiences with any women because I'm a biological man, but just from my short stint pretending to be a woman, I learned that their life can be difficult, just in terms of how society perceives you and what you have to do to just get ready and dress and make sure you're not dressing too provocatively, but you also want to be taken seriously. And people are always critical of your fashion. And so I just thought it was a lot more difficult and involved than it is being a man, where I feel like I'm not constantly judged and scrutinized for the way I'm dressing or the way I'm presenting myself.
People are always curious about reality TV, especially The Bachelorette. What's one behind the scenes secret about being on the show that people would be shocked to know?
I think that producers instigate scenes and they encourage people to talk to certain other people about certain topics. So I wasn't on the show that long, but the producers are pretty insistent that I strip out of the limo, even though that wasn't something I wanted to do. So I didn't realize how involved they were. And they also would tell me to have conversations with other people about The Bachelorette. And they would even go so far as to tell us what theme we should talk about. And so I thought it was interesting because it wasn't as spontaneous and real as I thought it would be. It was actually kind of contrived.
Wow. So let's start with the basics. How would you introduce yourself to people who think they know you, but they might not really understand who you are beneath the headlines?
Yeah, so I'm just a normal guy from a small town in Champaign-Urbana. It's in central Illinois. It's in the middle of cornfields. It is a small college town. And I was actually homeschooled my whole life. I had born-again Christian parents that really believed that, you know, teaching people about morals and religion was important. And in order to do that, they felt they had to homeschool me and my brothers. So I had a very sheltered upbringing. I think something people don't recognize is that I'm also, have an educational pedigree. I did undergrad where I majored in sociology, minored in political science. I then went on to get my Juris Doctor or law degree at Chicago Kent College of Law. And I feel like that's something that most people don't talk about. They just see me as this reality TV star, dancer turned social experiment connoisseur. So I would say my education is something that I feel like is often left out of the conversation.
What did your sidebar say on the show? What did they credit you as at the bottom?
Law school stripper, I think, or something like that.
The Bachelor's gone down, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
You've had quite a controversial journey to fame, but let's take it back. What was your childhood like? Were there early signs that you'd one day live in the spotlight?
My childhood, aside from being homeschooled, I feel like was kind of middle American. It was, growing up with baseball and going to church with your parents and having dinner all together as a family at the dinner table. And so I really just had a traditional American upbringing like what you see on TV. I remember being very young, maybe 8 or 9, and I would always watch like Entertainment Tonight and these celebrity gossip shows. And I would say, Mom, I want to be on TV one day. Or I'd watch a movie and I'd say, I want to be on TV and be an actor. And my mom would say, why are you saying those things, honey? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like I need to be on television. I want them to talk about me when I grow up and get older. I want them to talk about me on these shows, and I want to be in these magazines. And she was like, Josh, you're like 8 years old. Why don't you go play with your friends or ride your bike? And I was just pretty preoccupied with it at a young age. And so, growing up, people would make comments about that and recognize that I wanted to be on TV, or I wanted to, be noted for something one day. And they would also say things like, oh, Josh, you should go into theater, or you would make a great actor. Maybe you should audition for a play. But I never did those things. And it was only when I stepped on stage as an exotic dancer in law school that I really kind of was in the spotlight for the first time. And once I was, I enjoyed it.
The social experiment where you tricked the media into thinking you were transgender definitely made waves. Can you walk us through your thought process behind that? And did you have a wardrobe stylist? Did you take training?
Yeah, so I came up with the idea of the social experiment because I felt like every day I was being bombarded with stuff on TV saying, trans women are women and trans women belong in women's sports and trans women should be able to, use women's restrooms and locker rooms. And for me, that just struck me as false and weird, and I didn't like it. And I, had conversations with other people who also didn't like it. And so I just said, you know what? I don't agree with this. I don't think trans women are women. They're biological men that identify as women, but that doesn't mean that we have to accept it or that they should be able to invade traditional female spaces. So I want to come out against this. And my friend said, Josh, you can't come out against this. If you do, they're just going to label you a bigot and a transphobe. And, you're not going to be able to get away from that or out from under that. Because they're not going to try to debate you on the merits. They're just going to try to, hurl insults at you and say that you're a hateful person. And I said, well, one way I could get around that is if I infiltrated the community, became a trans woman, and then acted so obnoxiously like they do that people became fed up with it and started to see it for the farce that it is. And then like a mole, I destroy the community from within and expose it for what it really is, kind of like an undercover agent. And so it ended up working pretty well. People saw that and they were like, you know what? This is unacceptable. This is a man. He has hair on his chest. He has a beard. Clearly, this is a man. And of course, I'm sitting back watching this going, well, all trans women are men. All trans identified males are men. And more people need to understand that simple truth, that basic tenet, that a prerequisite of being a trans woman is that you're a man. Only men can be trans women. Women can't be because they're men. And so I just wanted to expose it, and I thought that would be an effective way. And it ended up working exactly how I wanted it to work. People were saying, look, these are just men at the end of the day. These are, in this case, a buff, burly, hairy man. Just because he puts on lipstick and a dress does not magically make him a woman. And so I feel like it kind of took the veil away. It, opened the curtains so that people could see trans women for what they are, which is men. When it came to my wardrobe, I didn't have a lot of help with that. I would go to a thrift store that was near my house just so that I could get these outfits for cheap because I didn't want to spend a lot of money. And so I would buy the ugliest, most atrocious looking outfits that I could possibly find because I really wanted to push the envelope. I wanted to see how outrageous I could be while people still cheered me on and said, yes, you're a valid woman. Well, am I a valid woman if I'm a hairy-chested, barrel-chested, bearded man in a tiny two-piece bikini? Am I still a woman then? And many people said, yes, you are. You're valid. Your journey's valid. And trans women are valid. So I really went out of my way to get the most hideous outfits I could find. And some of the videos I would wear more toned down stuff. but I really tried to push the limits with it. And so I didn't need much help because all you need to know is what looks terrible in order to be good at the game that I was playing. And I feel like I have an eye for what looks terrible. And when you're, a man pretending to be a woman, it's pretty easy to look terrible because you're a man pretending to be a woman. So trans women made it very easy for me to do this. In the game that we're all playing of faking being a real woman is an easy one to play.
What about the makeup?
So my makeup I had help with. That's one thing I knew nothing about. I had never touched makeup in my life. I had never, as a kid, seen my mom put makeup on. I don't think she ever used it. She was just, a busy mother of three homeschooling her kids. So I had no sisters, so I was never around makeup. So I had someone in my life who every day that I was going to film a video, which was usually 2 to 3 times a week, she would apply the makeup. And that was usually about a 35 to 45 minute process. Sometimes when I really wanted to push the envelope, I would just do like 10 minutes of makeup, the bare minimum. And I'd say, really make my beard pop on this one, really bring out my chest hair with, the makeup that you're putting on. But then I'd say by about month 3 or 4, I was able to actually do it, most of it myself. So I was able to apply, the blush and the bronzer, and I could never do the eyelashes. I still needed help with that, but I became kind of self-sufficient at it. But for the first 4 months or so, I needed someone to actually do that for me, and I feel like they did a good job.
Yeah, you looked great. Did you secretly enjoy rocking women's clothes, and what was your favorite outfit?
I never enjoyed rocking female clothes. I felt extremely uncomfortable. And in fact, I had to take a shot before I went out and filmed my first bit in public dressed as a woman because I just felt so uncomfortable. But I would say as the months progressed, it became easier for me to do it because I just didn't care what people thought in public because my videos were getting millions and millions of views. That was the motivation I needed to kind of step out of my comfort zone and say, hey, this is working. Your point's getting across. You're creating a dialogue and a conversation. If that means you have to wear a little tiny mini skirt or tube top out to the park or wherever you're filming this, just do it. And so I'd have to have this kind of inner dialogue with myself where I hyped myself up and I was like, Josh, you got to do this. By about the end of the experiment, it was fairly easy for me to get past that mental block because I was so motivated with the message I was getting out and the fact that it was resonating with millions of people. That made it a lot easier to where I could just kind of put the thoughts behind me and say, you know what, your message is getting out. You're making a difference and an impact. Just do it. And so it became easier.
Did you have any direct experiences with the transgender community before or after this experiment, and how did they react to what you did?
So I didn't personally know any trans people aside from I have a close family member that is trans. But aside from that, I did not have much experience with trans people. I have a lot of LGBT or LGB friends. There was one person that as part of this experiment, I kind of befriended and talked to undercover prior to the experiment to try to get a little bit of knowledge about the community. But that was about the extent of it.
Gotcha. How did they react? Like, how did the transgender community react to what you did?
So during the experiment, the trans community was split. There was a lot of people that were saying, you're not real trans, which was very confusing because I was like, well, we're all faking being women. So what's the difference? We're all pretenders. So we're all cosplaying being a woman. What's the difference between me and you? But they seemed very hung up on the fact that I had a beard and they didn't like that. And so they would say, oh, you need to shave. And I said, oh, so once I take a razor to my face, then I magically become a woman? How does this work? So I would get lots of messages, lots of comments from trans women saying, you are a joke, you're not real trans. And I said, oh, so I'm not a real fake woman. I'm a fake woman. You're a real fake woman. And so it was very interesting to see. There were some trans women that slid into my DMs and said, you know, oh, you're amazing. You're so motivational. Watching your journey is so beautiful. And I was just thinking, you must be severely mentally ill if you think what I'm doing is beautiful or amazing or anything positive. So I didn't reply to them. But yeah, I'd say the opinion was kind of split in the trans community, but most of it was anger because I was making them look like the farce that they are.
Any suitors? Any bi-curious men popping in?
Oh, okay. So anyone, not just trans. So in my DMs, I got a lot. I mean, I always get thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of messages. And during the social experiment, my Instagram was just, you know, exploding. My videos were getting millions and millions of views and hundreds of thousands of shares. So I was getting flooded with DMs, and I had men, women, trans people, you know, hitting on me in my DMs. I tend to not look at them or, you know, sift through them, but there were definitely people, men, women, and trans people saying, you are so hot, I'd love to date you, let me know if you're interested. And actually there was a lot of straight women that were messaging me that and saying that they wanted to date me. They thought I was a hot guy and thought I made a hot woman. So
What do you think about that, Jess? Do you agree?
I think it's hilarious. And yeah, definitely a hot man and woman.
And you followed him, right? You were
For months. Oh my God. Me and my friend, every day we would greet each other like, hey everyone.
oh my God, that's, hey everyone.
So you guys are free, just chat amongst
Okay,
yourselves.
cool.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate you. You were hilarious. It was so convincing.
Well, and it's easy to be convincing because, you know, there's not a hierarchy when it comes to men pretending to be women. So it's kind of easy to just be convincing and persuasive because trans people have set the bar so low. So I was really grateful to trans women for setting the bar so low for me to where I didn't have to do much to be a persuasive trans woman. All you have to do is throw on some lipstick and a dress and magically you become a woman. So, the requirements both in the trans community and the medical community made it very easy for me to do it because the medical literature and the medical guidelines say you don't have to transition to be valid. You don't have to have gender dysphoria to be valid. You don't have to get surgery to be valid. And you don't have to be on hormones to be valid. And so I said, oh my God, this is amazing. So that means I can be valid and all I have to do is have a gender identity that differs from my biological sex. Well, that's easy. I'll just say my gender identity differs from my biological sex. So I thought that was a great kind of loophole, but they've really just set the bar so low that anybody can claim to be trans, and that's the problem, and that's why people are up in arms, because there's no way to know the difference between someone who's mentally ill and has gender dysphoria and someone who just gets off to dressing up as a woman, autogynephilia. And so I think that's why people are so upset, because there's no requirements, there's no prerequisites to be a trans woman. You just have to be a man and you just have to say you're a woman, and that's it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I love it. Dude, I think you're onto something. I think you're so articulate. If there's so many people homophobic or angry about it, someone's got to be the hero. And you're not really doing much. You carry a strong argument no one could come at. And then the whole Bachelor thing's a joke in itself. To me, that one woman or one man with 20 suitors is like what the Mormons do. Like, I think it's ridiculous in itself.
Well, and I wasn't even attracted to the woman that was on my season. They don't tell you who the woman's going to be that you're there for until you've already gone through the auditions and you're in your hotel waiting to film the next day. So I thought, how can any of this be genuine if we don't even know who the Bachelorette is? There's no way all 25 of us are going to like her. And as it turned out, I was not attracted to Caitlyn. I didn't think she was attractive. And so maybe it was good that I went home early. But yeah, the whole premise of that show is misogynistic, patriarchal, and stupid, I think. So
what's the ratings like? How many people saw you on TV when you're on it?
I think we had 25 million viewers for the night that I stripped out of the limo. Yeah.
Wow, that's still pretty big. That's bigger than the Super Bowl, I think. So
I think the Super Bowl's 200 million.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still, 20% of the Super Bowl ain't bad.
Yes, 10%, yes.
Where can we find your Andrew Tate interview?
So I did Tristan Tate. I interviewed with Tristan Tate, Andrew Tate's younger brother, one part of the duo of the Tate brothers. And so Tristan DM'd me on Twitter the night of the reveal and said, you know, you are a legend. What you did was the most brilliant troll in history. I am here for you if you ever need anything. I think you're a genius, and I hope that this makes a huge impact. And then the next day he said, can I interview you on my show? And I said, absolutely. So it is on, the interview I did with Tristan is on Rumble. It's on his Twitter. It's on my Twitter. And I think if you just Google it, it should pop up. And it was a great interview. I think we talked for about 45 minutes about this entire thing about, you know, this postmodern gender ideology. And he's extremely well-spoken, extremely articulate. I was so impressed with him. And I really felt like we had a meeting of the minds. And so it was really great to just kind of have that cerebral encounter where you're talking to somebody about an important topic and you feel like it was edifying and educational.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy you're getting the recognition you deserve. And like, thank you so much for doing this and meeting with us. And yeah, do you have anything?
I've worked with, I've been in correspondence with Tristan, not Andrew. I like him. And I agree with everything you said. And that's cool that he platformed you. Great.
Yeah, I was so humble. And then even J.K. Rowling tweeted my reveal the next morning. And then Sal Grover is a huge women's rights activist, what they call, you know, what trans people call it, TERF. And she's right there alongside J.K. Rowling as this kind of prominent spokesperson for the movement for biological women and against trans women. And so she interviewed with me the next day as well. And then seeing J.K. Rowling tweeting my interview with Alex Stein was kind of a surreal moment. I was at the airport and I was like, oh my God, J.K. Rowling just retweeted my reveal. And she put a bullseye emoji caption, like spot on. So that was pretty cool. So it's definitely gaining some momentum.
You might have a full-on career where you could be booked to appear at a press rally, especially if Camilla gets in. You'll have maybe a decade or two of appearance fees you could charge.
Well, and exactly. If Trump gets in, it almost becomes a moot issue because I think he's going to take care of this issue of women playing sports. But there's so much going on with the trans movement, and they'll only be emboldened if Kamala gets into office, especially since, you know, she paved the way for them to get free transition surgeries in prisons and to be housed with biological women in prisons. There's a triple murderer, John Jacobson Jr., who is getting free transition surgery thanks to Kamala after he murdered 3 people in cold blood, and he's going to be housed in a women's prison, a man. And so, yeah, my goal is to just go on podcasts and shows and continue the conversation, continue the dialogue, and keep talking about this topic, because guess what? It affects our daughters, our sisters, our mothers. Anyone that knows a real woman, it affects. And so I'm very passionate about it, and I hope I can keep talking about it.
And one last thing, you'll probably find your future wife this way, because if a woman's willing to put up with that, it's a woman you can stay with for many a year.
Yeah, no, if a woman knows the experiment that I did and she's accepting of it, there's nothing worse or bigger that she could possibly find out that could turn her away or turn her off. And so this is kind of just getting it out there and saying, hey, I cosplayed being a woman for 6 months. And if she's cool with that, she'll be cool with anything. So
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
Love it. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
thank you guys so much.
Where can people follow you?
So people can follow me on Twitter at Josh_Seiter. And they can follow me on Instagram, along with all of the videos that made all of this possible, at Josh_Seiter_official.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. You guys have a huge following. So I really, really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to include me on your page, which you didn't have to do. I really appreciate it.
All good. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.
We love you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
So Josh is pretty incredible. Well-spoken, educated, articulate, and kind. Not to mention stunning. Let's chat a bit about his life. Josh was born in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois in the USA. He was born to 2 parents, Henry and Karen, and they were born-again Christians. They homeschooled him and his 2 brothers, who are named Israel and Stephen. They were homeschooled until college. He went to college at the University of Illinois, where he double majored in sociology and political science. Growing up, he played baseball, he was very into politics. His father was a conservative who frequently wrote letters to the editor. He was also into painting and a number of other artistic hobbies. After getting his bachelor's in sociology, he went on to law school in Chicago-Kent College of Law. During that time, he started exotic dancing to earn money because he wasn't wealthy like a lot of the other kids he went to law school with, and he also had to pay for everything himself. Guys, this is just awful. He was a dancer? Where is the dignity? Where is the shame? Where are the videos of him dancing? Can we find them online? If you guys find any of them, please send them to me so I can avoid them. In the DM is fine. Josh's parents were very blue collar, so he started dancing and then he appeared on The Bachelorette. He became an influencer online. He did that for a few years. He started advocating very hard for mental health, and then he began transitioning online for his social experiment. He wanted to speak out online about the things that other people might be too afraid to talk about. He is now considered a political advocate and a mental health activist. At 37 years old, he has definitely accomplished so much. What an interesting dude. He is Jewish, he's German, he's Russian. His maternal grandparents are Jewish, his mother is also Jewish, but religiously they were Christian converts. So he's Jewish ethnically and culturally, but raised Christian by his mother and father. So when fame hit him big more recently, it was pretty easy for him to handle. He's been in the spotlight on and off for years. It's easy for him to navigate fans, fame, and hate. It seems he keeps himself very strong-minded. He has his morals, he has his ethics, and the things that he stands by. He has very strong convictions, and that doesn't change with fame. Josh had a pretty cool outlook on fame. He said to me, "I'm aware that fame is temporary, it's not always permanent. I try not to put my happiness or wrap my happiness or make it contingent on fame. But fame can have positives, it can have drawbacks, so I just take the good with the bad." Growing up, his parents were very strict. They weren't allowed to watch a lot of TV, they could only listen to Christian music, they weren't allowed to celebrate Halloween for a lot of years. They constantly had to go to Christian groups, Bible studies, but the neighborhood they lived in was very diverse culturally, religiously, and racially, which he very much enjoyed. He said he still struggles with some public awkwardness because he was homeschooled his whole life, but it's gotten better with time. Adorable. He has been a voracious reader ever since he was 6 years old. His mom encouraged him and his siblings to read and take literature seriously, which is why he has such a good hold on the English language. He still does a lot of reading to this day. It's a huge passion of his. To wrap up, make sure you follow and support Josh on his journey. He's a great person. He definitely is going to be making waves for a long time. Let us know in the comments who you'd like us to cover next. Thank you so much for watching. I'm your host, Jessica Chinking. I hope you have a fabulous day.
We have a big announcement that's going to allow you to get a lot closer to Hollywood. Now, before they are famous, they've entered into an epic new partnership with Mogul Productions, utilizing the magic of Web 3.0. Now, if you ever wanted to land a walk-on role in a Hollywood movie, how about getting a producer's credit? How about going to some red carpet events, some meet and greets with the stars, and more? You can even submit your own productions and have them reviewed by some Hollywood execs. I myself, I've got a sitcom I'm going to be putting on the site. Now, if you don't believe me, well, Mogul Productions, it was behind the release of City of Dreams. Now, this was a film promoted by Sylvester Stallone, Mike Tyson, and executively produced by Tony Robbins himself. So if you've been waiting for your chance to get your big shot at getting in on all the action show business has to offer, well, we're encouraging you to check out the Mogul Productions website right now. There's a link in all our recent uploads, and here are some of the current opportunities that are up for grabs. The film The Caretaker, you can star in the film and get taken out by lead actor Robert Bronzi. Can't Escape the Allure is another project, and on that you can get a producer credit. Also, Rello Renzano's upcoming album. Now, there was a spot to be an extra in the new film Texas Nightmare, currently being filmed in LA, but sadly, it's filming right now. So if you weren't already on the site applying, you would have missed it. You can click into each project on the site and you can read more details about the project, who's involved, and what exciting perks are up for grabs. We'll be bringing you new updates each and every week about this epic collab between Before They Are Famous and Mogul Productions. So be sure to stay tuned to the end of each video so you don't miss out. All right.